Playoff baseball. The Indians a third straight division title. They play the defending champion Astros in the division series starting Friday right here on 105.7 The Zone. 2:07 first pitch. Then game 2 Saturday, 4:35. Our best Buckeye coverage pregame before Ohio State, Indiana will lead you up to the Tribe pregame Saturday. And at the mic is going to be Tribe play-by-play man Tom Hamilton, who joins us now. Tom, obviously everyone hopes that this is a special October and the Indians end a World Series drought. But just getting to this point is special. I mean, I know the division was terrible, but nonetheless, it's 3 straight division titles. I grew up near Chicago. I'm a White Sox fan. I'll always have 2005, but they haven't sniffed the postseason in a decade. This October thing the Indians have going on usually isn't a rite of passage. So it is pretty special what the Tribe have going on, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, since divisional play, the Indians have won the Central Division now 10 times, and just looking back at it, Kansas City's won the division title once. Now, granted, they won the World Series in 2015, but, they also got to the World Series the previous year as a wild card team. But, in that span, the Indians have been in the playoffs 10 times as a division winner and once as a wild card team. And that's 11 years of postseason baseball since divisional play came into effect in '94, and the Royals have been in it twice. So, boy, when you're talking that span of time, and you mentioned the White Sox, they won it all as well. But as much as you want to win a World Series, but I don't want to see a ball club win a World Series and then have 10, 15 years of morbid baseball, because that makes for an awful long 6 months of a summer.
No doubt about it. Tom, is there any way to ever tell how October is going to go? I know, because last year had this great roll, win the first 2 games, and then everything goes south in 3 games. The Cubs had a great year, 2 losses, they're out. Is it just a season in of itself?
Yeah, I really think it is, Matt. It's, to me, in a lot of ways, of what the National Hockey League playoffs have been, because I think when you talk about the NBA or the NFL, it's pretty predictable. Very seldom do you see a team have an incredible run that you just didn't see coming prior to the playoffs. In fact, prior to the regular season, you can almost count on one hand the teams that are legitimately going to be in the hunt at the end. Whereas you get into baseball now, nobody saw the Atlanta Braves having the kind of year that they have had, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Colorado Rockies. That's what makes our game so refreshing. And as good as the Cubs have been now, for them to lose 2 games at home like they did and be out of the playoffs. And I've seen it with the Indians. In '97, that ball club had a very ho-hum year, won a very lackluster division with 86 wins, and came a win away from winning it all. And to your point, last year you win 22 in a row. You have all that momentum. You have a great comeback win in Game 2 at your own place before you go to New York. And like that, Aaron Judge takes a 2-run home run away from Frankie Lindor because he's 6'7", and instead of sweeping the Yankees in 3 games, you end up losing the series. So I truly believe that nobody has any idea how this is going to go. You might have certain trends that you can look at, but gosh, I think with this ball club, man, it's really hard to get a read on it because the club hasn't been pushed all year. It seemed like the month of September was extended spring training because you were trying to get guys enough at-bats or enough innings to get them healthy and sharp again, that this club has not played a meaningful game in quite a while. Now, when they played the Boston Red Sox, even though nothing was at stake, they win that weekend series against Boston. So will the Indians play to the level of their competition? They better, because if they don't, they'll get run out of it in a hurry, because I still think Houston's the best team in baseball. That being said, I think the Indians have a ball club that's built for October. And I also feel the same way about the Astros. I've heard a lot of people say, Matt, the winner of that series is going to win the World Series. Now, that might be getting a little over dramatic, but I think a lot of people might be right on that as well. So the beauty, I think, of this is October is that you really can't predict it, be it March Madness, be it the National Hockey League playoffs where a hot goalie can take you to the Stanley Cup. I think that's the beauty of our sport.
Visiting with Tom Hamilton, play-by-play voice of the Indians, Tribe, and Houston, set to start the division series. You mentioned these two teams being built for October. Is it the pitching staffs, Tom, that makes you feel that way? What jumps out about you about these two particular teams?
I think everything about their teams, Matt. Both ball clubs have the ability to pummel you with a long ball, yet both ball clubs are so athletic and have so much team speed they can manufacture runs. And I just think that is critical come October because you face the best pitching that there is left in the game. You're not facing anybody's fifth starter anymore. You're not beating up mediocre bullpens. You can't get to this point of a baseball season and have a glaring weakness because that's the beauty of our sport, that you're exposed when you play every day for 6 months. Whatever your major weakness is going to be exposed, and it's why a lot of teams look good for 5 months and can't finish the deal. These clubs have everything. They have very athletic clubs that can manufacture runs, that can hit the home run. They both have dominant starting rotations with strikeout pitchers that can get them out of jams with a runner at third base and less than 2 out. And they both have very good back ends of the bullpen. Are they perfect teams? No. I think both teams have question marks with the back ends of their bullpen. They both could be dominant, but they've both had some issues this year with their bullpens. And both teams have some players that are coming off injuries or maybe haven't played real great baseball down the stretch. So I think in a lot of ways these two teams mirror each other. And I can't think of many better Game 1 matchups than Corey Kluber and Justin Verlander.
No doubt about it. And in terms of Verlander, I mean, his years in Detroit, one of the best pitchers we've seen of this era. But the Indians have had some success against him, and they've seen him a lot. How much does that help from a confidence standpoint? Do they feel okay with that matchup, even though Verlander is a hammer?
I think they do, because the one thing we have seen with Verlander, when he faces the Indians, he's never mediocre. He's either been flat-out dominant or the Indians have tattooed him. And by that, I mean they've had games, 7, 8 runs off Verlander. And, Verlander complained a couple of years ago that he thought the Indians were stealing signs when he pitched here in Cleveland, and that's why they were hitting him. And then a week later, we're at Comerica Park, and the Indians score more runs off of him than they did in Cleveland. So he didn't have that excuse to fall back on anymore. I think there's been the familiarity that the Indians have seen Verlander, as good as he is, when you see him like the Indians did, sometimes 5 and 6 times a year, you have a little better feel for how he's going to attack you. And the more a hitter feels like he knows what might be coming, the more comfortable they are. That being said, Verlander could go out and throw 8 innings of shutout baseball. I just think you'll get a very good feel for both pitchers early in the game as to what kind of a game it is. I think with both Corey Kluber and Justin Verlander, if you don't get to those guys early, you're not getting to them. And I also don't think it was by any way an accident that the Indians did not face Verlander this year. The Indians played the Astros in back-to-back series in a 10-game period or a 10-day period, and Verlander didn't pitch in any of those games. I don't think that was a coincidence. I think the Houston Astros wanted Verlander to have not seen the Indians this year, or more importantly, the Indians not to have seen Verlander. And, now it's been a little over a year since they faced him. So we'll see. But as good as Verlander is, and as much success as the Indians have had against him the last couple of years when he was with Detroit, they may be confident, but Verlander can take that confidence away from you in a hurry.
Last thing for Tom Hamilton here. How much in the postseason is on the manager? I think back to 2 years ago, I felt like Terry Francona managed that team to within a game of the World Series.
Yep.
How much difference do managerial decisions make in the postseason as opposed to, game 130 in the regular season?
Matt, I think, I don't know if you can even quantify it. That's how big a difference I think managers can be, because you do manage differently. And if a manager ever tells you you don't, well, then you don't want that guy managing your club in the playoffs. there has to be a sense of urgency in the playoffs that you never have or could have in a 6-month season. If you manage teams in June and July like you do in October, you wouldn't have a team breathing by the 1st of August. So that's, to your point, why Tito was so invaluable. His ability to think outside the box like he did in 2016 because of the injuries to 3 starting pitchers. You were basically down to Tomlin and Kluber, and the way he was able to use his bullpen really in ways we'd not seen anybody do prior to Tito. That has to be in your manager's repertoire, the ability, I think, to think outside the box, to adjust on the fly. And the beauty of Tito is he is not concerned about getting second-guessed. There are a lot of managers in this game, even come postseason, that are not going to do something that gets them second-guessed. Tito's not worried about that because he has enough confidence and belief in what he is doing at that time is the right thing. Does it always work out? Absolutely not. But you can't manage afraid to make a mistake. And Terry never does. It may not always work out, but I think he gives you an edge in postseason play that a lot of teams don't have. And that's why I think, Matt, you're going to see Trevor Bauer in the bullpen in games 1 and 2, and how those games go will determine whether or not Bauer is going to start a game in this series. Bauer may help this club, especially in this series, more out of the bullpen than he would making one start. And I think you're going to see that sense of urgency from the get-go and the ability to go to Bauer in a ball game early if you don't think your starter has it. That's a real weapon that, the Indians haven't had maybe in the past.
Well, it should be fun and fascinating to watch, Tom, and let's hope we're talking deep into October. Thanks so much for taking a few minutes, and best of luck to you and the Tribe.
Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you having me. All the best.